네, 잘 보셨나요? 네, 두 번째로 만나보실 해외 연사분을 소개할 텐데요. 이분은 교육, 이민, 청소년 문제 등의 학습 경험을 구체적으로 게임 디자인 및 게이미피케이션 관점에서 개발하고 또 구현하고 계시는 전문가이십니다. 벨기에의 베이빈 엘빈 툰츠 연사님, 사회적 결속을 증진시키기 위한 게이미피케이션의 가능성. 네, 연사님 만나보겠습니다.
Hello everyone, my name is Beybin Elvin Tunc. I have plenty of hats as a requirement of 21st century, I guess, but today I'm here as an independent consultant and learning experience designer. Today, I would like to talk about the potential of gamification to foster social cohesion. I have to say it's a bit strange feeling to record myself and not being present with you there to receive your reactions. Meanwhile, knowing that I will be watching far away lands in some time, but I will share my contact information at the end of the presentation. So I hope you will enjoy the presentation and let me know about your comments later on. I will be more than happy to be contacted. Okay. Let me go through the agenda of my presentation. I will start with a short introduction of myself because the topic is very related to my own story, and of course I'm going to explain how I come with these two terms, why social cohesion and why gamification, and then I will try to demonstrate about why gamification has a potential for social cohesion and in which manners they are intersecting, and of course at the end I will have some future remarks on the topic. At first, I would like to introduce my background a bit, not only to promote myself, but mostly highlighting that I'm not a gamification or game design expert. What is an expert is another question, but my background is sociology rather than business or marketing, which I find this conference as a very good opportunity to encounter and include other approaches in the field of gamification. I know usually people really want to know where I am from. I was born and raised in Turkey. I have a sociology degree from Middle East Technical University, and during my bachelor years, I have already started to work in different non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations. I work with children and women in closed penalty institutions, as known as prisons. I worked against exploitation, abuse, and harassment of children. I work with survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. And after my graduation, I started working with a non-governmental organization in a UNICEF project, directly working with migrants and refugees as psychosocial support and child protection officer. Then I worked with a global humanitarian organization concerned worldwide in Southeast Turkey, in the border of Syria, as senior education officer. Then I was selected by European Commission to study in an international master's program on migration and intercultural relations. I studied in 4 different universities in Germany, Norway, Uganda, and Slovenia. And as part of my studies, I did my internship in Brussels, in Belgium, with International Organization of Migration, which is the United Nations Migration Agency. Then I apparently stayed in Brussels, now working as an education program coordinator with COFACE Families Europe. It's a European NGO, non-governmental organization, and I'm developing e-learning modules on social rights for professionals working with family-related issues. And yet, since 2015, I am working as an independent consultant, learning experience designer, and facilitator. On my own terms, basically, I am workshopizing the content, like organizations, people, companies are approaching to me saying, okay, this is our target group, we want them to learn or discuss about this issue, and I'm designing and delivering how to do that through workshops. Okay, amazing, but where is the gamification in all those things? I want to take you to the year 2015. I don't know if this year rings a bell or do you have any special personal attachments to this year, but when I hear 2015, I only have goosebumps, but in a bit negative sense. 2015 was named as a year of migration, year of crisis, refugee crisis, migration crisis, human rights crisis that you may recall. But I was always wondering whose crisis was it actually? And I know this is not a migration conference, so I'm not diving deep there, but it was for sure a crisis for me, for myself. As a very young professional, I was left all alone in a field where there was a huge social conflict raising up in the society, high discrimination, racism, xenophobia, whatever you can name. And maybe it's good to explain a bit historical side. The war in Syria started in 2011. And I'm talking about 2015 and in Turkey. We have already been living together for 4 years. Therefore, humanitarian aid period, which means the focus of emergency was shifted to the need of integration and social cohesion. And in other words, basic needs like shelter, food, sanitation have been mostly covered. But now, like in 2015, the needs like education, livelihood, social security was emerging. As a more or less educated person, you know what society needs or lacks, so you don't have to have 3 PhDs to understand the polarization, the conflict, the tension in the society. Like, I'm talking about strong feelings like fear, anger, hate. And of course, humanitarian approach is very essential in that regards, like to approach the social conflicts, which basically means that all human beings deserve respect and dignity, to be approached without any discrimination, humane as acknowledging the inequalities and vulnerable situations. And this approach needs to be independent from all the other power structures like economic interests, political parties, and so on. And the way we need to have was social cohesion, where all members of society feel sense of belonging and trust through strength of togetherness towards the society and also towards each other. To simplify, you can think like that, like we have a social conflict, what we want to achieve is social cohesion, and whatever way we choose to transform social conflict into social cohesion should be through a humanitarian approach. Like, in order to achieve social cohesion with a humanitarian approach, like I have received and delivered many trainings. I did the best PowerPoints to defeat polarization and social conflict. I invited the experts of the experts on the topic, but I haven't observed the change effect that I was chasing after. Like I know that I needed transformation. It seems like what we want to do is clear, but the problem was like I didn't know how. Wondering the answer to this question brought me here in front of you today, actually. And from my personal self, I know the quickest and the most rooted transformations are coming through experience. So I need an experience that creates a reciprocal understanding, that sets interpersonal bonds, building bridge in a fun way to cross over all the dirty water running in between. And one day I have joined into a youth training about game design for intercultural learning, and it was in Berlin. And as a gamer and as a techno lover, I said like game design, Berlin, why not? There I heard about gamification first time and learned a bit about game design, game elements, game mechanics. And when I came back, I was super enthusiastic about trying it out. At first I tried with children's group that I was working with. I started to work with children to overcome some forms of discrimination, such as xenophobia, which means to fear or hate from the perceived other, stranger, foreigner. Like you may heard like sentences like that, these migrants are dirty, they are liars, I don't want to play with them, and so on. So I tried to implement some very basic game elements, such as, okay, the person who learns 10 words in Arabic from classmates and teach them 10 Turkish words will be the master of language, will get this key to open the secret treasure of blah, 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 like, storytelling and gamifying this experience a bit. And I realized, like, this started an interaction, a communication, a learning, an exchange opportunity, while they were not being aware of it. The fun, the engaging part of the game elements gets over the prejudices. Then I say, okay, Beybin, like you need to disseminate, to create a space of collaboration, creation, more experiences like this. So you need to try this idea with others. I told you, I'm workshopizing things. So as my action plan, I develop a workshop for professionals working with people in vulnerable situations to utilize gamification against discrimination. Not only in Turkey, but in different countries with different problems. Like it goes beyond Turkey, it goes beyond many problems, we started to develop gamified experiences to overcome different forms of discriminations. The workshop is tackling inequalities. So the first part is facilitating them to define what they see as a problem, what kind of change they want to achieve, then introducing very basics of game elements, and also discussing the differences between games, gamification, play, a bit of terminology. And for the second round, participants are designing a gamification experience to address these challenges they have come up in the first stage. It's important to repeat that the participants are humanitarian workers, social workers, case workers, teachers, youth workers, and it's always amazing for me to see how many ways that they are coming up to increase social cohesion in their society through very small, amateur, usually costless gamified experiences. And this workshop pushed them to apply gamification more and more in their context, to give a chance to change through playing. So it is a very basic introductory workshop to think about the potential of using gamification to foster social cohesion. So my role is just clicking the play button. Collecting the outcomes throughout my workshops, I found a chance to publish one article and one book chapter together with my colleague Marvin Yamerman. I added the links on my reference list at the end of my presentation. You can find them there. They are mainly about discussing how gamification and social cohesion has mutual approach and practices, therefore how gamification has a huge potential to foster social cohesion and reduce social conflicts with humanitarian approach. How is it working? Like social cohesion, gamification, how does these concepts are intersecting? Why can gamification be the right approach to overcome discrimination in certain contexts and help to promote cohesion? First of all, let's check the secret behind the definitional difference between games and gamification. We know that gamification is the application of game design elements, game principles in a non-game context. So based on this definition, play, same, fun, same. But the difference is the non-game context. What happens if you apply game elements and game principles into a non-game context? I came up with 3 outcomes from this difference between games and gamification that explains why I choose gamification instead of games to foster social cohesion. First of all, it's about realities. Applying game elements into a non-game context means you are breaking up the magic circle. Yeah, our favorite circle. In games, the magic circle, or whatever terminology you prefer, is giving you another world, another dimension, another identity. Games are in another reality in some point. Gamification is a concept that emerged from this segregation between an alternative world and the real world. Separately, gamification is settled in reality, current world, with really existing challenges. Its main goal is to change the non-game context, which is happening in reality rather than in a game world. Obviously, gamification is being implemented to solve, to approach, to act towards a certain desired planned goal, while games are played consciously and voluntarily to have fun, where players are accepting to step into a magic circle. In short, games construct an alternative world. However, tackling social conflicts, we need this world, the reality we are in, needs to become the main setting with real identities, with real people. Therefore, through gamification, we keep the fun and engaging parts of the game, meanwhile keeping it real, both in contextual and identity sense. Different objectives. Secondly, they have different objectives. They have different agendas. That's why they are using motivation in a different manner. Surely games have a great motivational effect. Like imagine, even though the possibility of losing in the game is equal to the possibility of winning, the game mechanisms exist to compel people to engage with games just for the sake of enjoyment. And gamification is embedded into a specific context in order to reinforce a motivation for a while until the motivation dissolves into a behavior. Therefore, in games, motivation is a tool to keep the players engaged in the game, while in gamification, motivation is the objective to achieve the desired goal. In gamification, game is only a tool, an element to accomplish specific targets in any area, which usually is not game-oriented, such as social cohesion. Rather than centralizing the game and the fun that emerges, gamification has a substantial goal outside the game. This goal outside the game is defined as performing desired behaviors, overcoming difficulties, or developing possible solutions. Therefore, it is important to highlight this distinction between games and gamification. And in fact, the benefits of gamification go beyond the hedonic elements, as they also include utilitarian and social benefits through developing motivation. As I just mentioned, they have different outcomes. Talking about utilitarian and social benefits, games are not completely new in the world of humanitarian work, and there are various examples how games can be used to improve field interventions. For example, organizations such as Save the Children or UNESCO have already used games in their interventions to improve their impact and to make actions more effective and comprehensive. Nevertheless, especially in digital projects, the use of games remains mostly a tool for self-reflection or awareness raising, or game-based approaches rarely go beyond the layer of understanding the issue. As we talked, objective of gamification is more than educating or simulating. It is more related with motivations, behaviors, engagements, rather than knowledge building. That is why gamification is embedded in life. It is like a public space where people are coming and living. It does not differentiate or select its participants. Participants can mostly select to be involved or not. It is accessible and inclusive for any volunteer participant. This is leading to a wider perspective and in comparison with real life, while enhancing more outcomes like strengthening relations and belongings. And we are talking about humans. We are homo ludens, like, aren't we? So acknowledging their needs and interests should also encompass natural desires for joyful learning and motivational mediation. In that respect, rather than games, gamification is increasing the motivation to be involved in valuable spaces of social interaction where meaningful encounters and exchanges can take place. These specific exchanges can turn into concrete outcomes such as behavioral change. When we look at social cohesion, as we know, the public discourse has been reproduced through politics many times in media or even in our families. Consequently, starting from childhood, people are occupied by prejudices, bias, information, and stereotypes. There is an action needed to become aware of own bias, then proceed on working on them through exchange. Based on this, gamification reduces the constructed barrier in front of coming together. Because social cohesion means coexistence. And gamification can provide this stop and listen moment through providing a common ground with equal rules and regulations that are the same for everyone. This game element can be useful to start from a common ground even for the people who are on the opposite sides. In other words, gamification approaches are prepared for equal exchange between diverse participants and encourage social interaction between individuals or groups that might not meet otherwise. Using gamification for social cohesion is not only reducing fear from the differences, but also preventing a one-dimensional belonging to a certain group. It's a convivial ground that brings diverse people together with its fun elements who may never come together in their natural way. So it provides a first step to being together for a common goal. Apparently, gamification has a power to shift this narration of division and distinction into realization of commonness. In short, gamification constructs a space of commonness where distant groups can interact, develop understanding for each other. Gamification provides a coexistence space through playing under common rules for a common goal, being together without losing realities, differences and similarities, the things that makes us, such as our identities. Gamification provides a coexisting experience, not despite differences, but with differences. And social cohesion means co-creation. As we repeat and repeat, different from games, gamification is applied in non-game context. This makes everyone exposed to gamification as persons rather than players. The participants are being part of the experience with their differences, authentic selves, positionalities. In addition to coexistence, gamification is making this exchange meaningful by using game mechanics as a tool to shift participants from passive thinkers and pull them into the situation directly. Though through mechanics, the nouns become verbs, passive encounters turn into action. Despite the use of passive voice, gamification addressing the actors directly as the agents of actions during the process. With this provocative and activist structure, gamification proves that it can also indirectly combat xenophobic, discriminatory, and segregating discourses in a peaceful and substantial way by creating a new picture between diverse actors. In other words, gamification can unite diverse groups on the same ground, not only based on structured and equal rules of the game, but also on the same ground of being human beings. And this leads to a level of beyond being a migrant, refugee, threat, crisis, problem, victim, but towards being human, who can afraid, hesitate, love, fail, struggle. Through this connection, humans can work together to shift negative connotations into positive affirmations. Through gamification approach, the recognition of the possibility or discovery of another narration is possible. It creates this inspiration through motivating all people who are playing to be part of a constructing new equal starting point. Through this experience, participants co-create new behaviors, new narration, new source of knowledge by playing together. They discover new possibilities, new angles, new ways of thinking together. They are contributing to the game, to the change, to each other actively by their behaviors during the gamification experience. Gamification is social cohesion is cooperation. Gamification is participant-centered, so it targets directly to its participants as they are the game themselves. And to win or to lose the game, they should be actively taking actions by themselves. So gamification gives responsibility to its participants. Despite the game, which sets all the rules and take all the attention, in gamification, the focus is on people. The open and collaborative environment provided by gamification allows for greater flexibility on the part of participants to think, listen, and share ideas. This is an important aspect in which gamification presents a democratic space where ideas are shared and debated to find a way to achieve something together or achieve something in ourselves also. As such, gamification resembles a vivid space for conflict creation, but also a mutual learning space that motivates participants to engage with these conflicts in a cohesive way. But because it's fun, it's engaging, motivating, just like games. Throughout this meaningful exchange fed by actions and reactions, gamification has potential to transform social conflicts into social bonds. Therefore, gamification is a cooperation process, cooperation with the self, with the others, with the game in order to win. This time, the win is also real win, as it contributes positively to the self and the society. That is why gamification creates social bonding through cooperating for the common good. To summarize, I started by telling my story about the need of transforming social conflicts into social cohesion through a humanitarian approach, and how gamification can be a right approach rather than games. As gamification is embedded in reality, has a different objective like motivating people to act, and its goal is to achieve change of behavior at the end. And how these make gamification and social cohesion interrelated, as social cohesion means coexistence, co-creation, cooperation. As you can see from this sum-up chart, how gamification can embrace social cohesion. And then it can foster reciprocal understanding, building bridges and interpersonal bonding with a fun experience, as I was searching for in the beginning. Okay, Last remarks. Firstly and essentially, do no harm. When applying gamification, the non-game context needs to be analyzed in the sense of its readiness. We are talking about fostering social cohesion to reduce social conflicts, polarization, social inequalities, and forms of discriminations. That means non-game context needs humanitarian approach to be sensitive about vulnerable situations. Therefore, not every non-game context is ready to apply game elements. If there are emergency responses, safety and security issues, or apparent violence between groups, it's problematic to expose people in a fun process, as you can imagine. Just like social cohesion, gamification can only be applicable after some needs are covered and some risks are reduced in that non-game context. Secondly, as targeting a controversial topic, cross-disciplinary approaches are essential. Gamification approach should be deeper than applying game design elements. Since lack of cohesion is politically highly charged and very sensitive, as it is always connected with personal stories, the encounters, the interactions can lead to conflicts, even more conflicts than you want to solve. As discussed before, the magic circle is less rigid than games, which can lead to more personalized triggering experiences. Therefore, getting support from specialized experts such as sociologists, psychologists, or social workers can offer a safer environment. To have a humanitarian approach to reduce risks like harming certain groups or to offer proper interventions, exchange with different disciplines is crucial. As an addition in the design process, like a suggestion, different groups can represent their needs themselves, actively contribute to the design process, as they will know the best for themselves even more than external experts. Thirdly, cross-sectoral cooperations are very valuable. For example, despite humanitarian organizations having the best knowledge or practice in the field, they may not be aware of innovative or creative methods such as gamification. This is why it is important to disseminate knowledge, work together for co-creative processes. Sectors like marketing, communications, and computer sciences have an immense gamification applications that can be adapted to the social field. Eventually, conferences like this, communities of practices, research projects, networking opportunities have a crucial impact on sharing, developing, and multiplying knowledge and practice. Lastly, non-governmental organizations, civil society, humanitarian organizations, those are more considered as non-profit organizations. However, non-profit doesn't mean there is no profit. But I will let you to judge this, charge this sentence, as you are the business people at the end. What can this mean? Here are my references that I use during my presentation. I didn't want to overload my slides with in-text references, but I assume that you will receive the presentation, so please feel free to take it further. That is why it looks terribly unreadable. And my book chapter and article are also there. And thank you so much for giving me the space. I hope it triggers some ideas and some reflections already. If you want to keep in touch, here are my contact details. I will be very, very happy to hear your impressions afterwards and hope to encounter each other again. Many greetings from Brussels and enjoy the rest of the conference. Yeah, I hope you're applauding now. Thank you.
네, 보통 게이미피케이션이라고 하면 교육, 기업 비즈니스, 기술 등의 대부분 어떤 영리적인 측면을 많이 적용하는데요. 연사분의 마지막의 부분에서 힌트를 조금 보여주신 것처럼 게이미피케이션이 꼭 영리적인 부분에만 적용되는 것이 아니라 이런 어떤 여러 사회적인 다양한 이슈들에도 적용할 수 있고 이를 통해서 사회 연대와 통합에도 기여한다는 점 네, 이렇게 깊이 있고 좋은 관점을 보여주신 것 같습니다. 특히 연사분의 흔하지 않은 이렇게 생생한 어떤 자기의 개인적인 경험에서 바탕을 한 영상인 것 같아서 정말로 도움이 많이 된 것 같습니다. 네, 좋은 발표를 해주신 해외 연사분들께 다시 한번 뜨거운 박수 부탁드립니다. 네, 혹시라도 여러분들 중에 여기 해외 연사분들께 뭔가 질문하고 싶으신 점이 계시다면요. 조금 전에 어떤 컨택할 수 있는 연락처를 남기시기도 했지만 컨퍼런스 웹사이트 www.gami-talks.com에 들어가셔서요. 상단에 기타를 클릭하시고 Contact Us의 질의를 남겨주시면 됩니다. 네, 질의 내용 작성 안내에 대해서는 상단에 기타를 클릭하신 후에 FAQ 게시판에 글을 참조하시면 되시겠습니다.